Is Ben Kingsley. We are the hosts of The Property Couch, and we wonder if you've ever, when it comes to investing in property, you've turned out at a barbecue, gone to a restaurant, you've been hanging out with your mates, and they've just bought an investment property, and you think...
Because they are thinking it, aren't they, right? They're not going to, unless it's really, really close friends, but if they're out with a sort of a network and go, how did you buy that investment property?
How did you do it?
How did you do it?
How's it possible? So
super hard.
Because I think I earn about the same amount of income as you. We've got about the same amount of kids. We send them to the same schools, got the same amount of dogs, we go on the same holiday. How is it that you can afford an investment property and I can't seem to find any spare money to buy an investment property myself?
Because, Bryce, most people think that they've got to save up all this money to be able to do it when there is another way. So why don't we sort of show people a bit of 101?
Yes.
Property investing. How do you use equity to buy an investment property?
Remember that ad back in the day? Equity made.
Equity made.
All right, let's have a scenario. Here is our scenario. Let's talk about the situation where someone...
It's a nice house there, Bryce.
You like that?
I like that.
It's Edwardian.
Okay, that's your principal place of residence.
Principal place of residence, and they've got $700,000 worth of value.
Yep.
And let's say they've got a $400,000, so that's the value.
Yep.
And that's a $400,000 mortgage or debt.
Yep.
Which leaves them with $300,000 in equity, Ben. But here's the deal.
Yes.
Their cash flow is pretty tight. They're paying off the mortgage.
Yep.
And so the surplus at the end of the month makes it difficult for them to save a deposit to buy any more real estate. So the question remains, how do they do it?
Well, there's a couple of things we need to understand firstly here, right? So when we're talking about the principal place of residence, even though this might be the equity position, some of that is going to be left for the bank.
Yes.
Okay, so they want to have around 20% of that. Okay, so we're left with what's left over. Now, in terms of a $700,000 property, if that means that the equity is at 80% level, then that's $560,000. Okay, so we then
700
correct
times 80%.
Yep,
$560,000.
Now we've got a $400,000 debt. Okay,
already here.
So ultimately, we're left with $160,000 of available equity,
releasable
equity to go and buy what, Bryce? Well, let me see if I can draw a house for us. This is an investment property. All right, let's see if we can do that. So this investment property.
All right, let's run
some numbers on this.
Let's give it a number, Ben. Let's say this investment property is going to be $500,000.
Correct.
And I don't have a deposit saved.
Right.
So you're saying I can get that investment property without a deposit being saved.
Correct, because what I'm also saying is that's what the value of the asset's going to be, but we've also got costs, don't we, Bryce?
We do.
So if we work out 5% costs, what does that mean?
Let's say $25,000. So to settle on this property, I don't need $500.
No.
I actually need $525,000 to complete on settlement day.
So no wonder people thinking, I haven't saved up enough for deposit. Now, they might have in their bank account $30,000, nice little buffer. But the reality is, if we can access this equity here, Bryce, we're going to be in a position where we can potentially acquire that property.
Yeah.
Now, we learnt earlier in regards to the bank want to see 20% value in that property. So a $500,000 property, you can potentially lend against this property $400,000. Now remember, we need $525,000.
Ben, I don't have a deposit. I'm $125,000 short. So therefore, that's the flaw in your argument.
Yeah. So that's why if you grab that little red pen, Bryce, draw a line over here for me. Bring me $125,000 from that position, okay, and then ultimately I have $525,000 to secure this investment property.
And you still have $35,000 left over, Ben, as a buffer. If you were to release all of that equity, you buy the investment property, as you say, you don't need the cash deposit.
Correct.
You take it out of your releasable equity, and then for those who sleep at night wondering what happens if an unplanned event happens,
They got 35 there. They might also have another 30. Because remember, they haven't used any of their own cash. They may have that, if you listen to our work, in an offset account against that $400,000 property. That's their after-tax money. We want to leave that over here, which means that this investment property is going to be 105% of lending. So the interest on that investment property is going to be deductible. So that's a good news story when we're talking about being in a position where we can cover those costs. So we've obviously got the rent coming in as well. So there will be a shortfall usually when you're borrowing that much. So you've got to be mindful of that. And I think that is also a really important message here is we've talked about equity. Don't forget the other important piece, which is you've got to have cash flow. You do have to have the available surplus every month to be able to borrow this money. Now, in terms of how you would work that out, it's your income plus a percentage of the rental income is going to allow you to work out that borrowing power, Bryce.
Well said, Ben. So if I've got a property that's worth $700,000, say you and your friend who are back at that barbecue, you were talking, and let us know what you think of this live teaching, folks, in the comments. We'd love to hear that. But let's just say you're at the barbecue and you both got a $700,000 property, and let's just be really conservative, Ben. Let's just say the value is going up by 5%.
Yep.
That means in this case here, your net worth would be going up by $35,000. So you both be right.
Yep, got it.
But in this scenario here, if we've got 700 plus 500, that means we've actually got a portfolio worth 1.2 million.
Correct.
And then if they both go up 5%, the person who just has their principal place of residence goes up by 35,000. But this one is actually going up, Ben.
Well, that's 25,000 on top of that, isn't it? So grand total, 60K.
Absolutely. So, folks, that is why you would consider being in a leveraged position, subject to your risk profile. You'd be in a leveraged position so that you can control more assets, so that over time you can let the power of compounding and time work in your favour so that the portfolio continues to grow in value. Now, Ben, just before we go, on this one here, you are an ex-mortgage broker. Well, you're a mortgage broker. You used to...
I'm not on the tools as much as I used to be, Bryce.
You're actually quoted in the Financial Review as the mortgage broker. A couple of line of credit, drawdown as equity, put it into offsets. Maybe just a quick chat around what the mechanics of that looks like.
Yeah, so the mechanics of that is always the separation of the two debts. So how we would structure that loan is we've got loan one, which is effectively this 400,000. We're getting a little bit tight on our board here, Bryce.
Is there real estate there, Ben?
Yeah, there's a little bit over this corner. Loan two would be that 160.
Yep.
Okay, so that is nice, clear differentiation in terms of what is owner-occupied debt and what is investment debt. So we've got that nice and clear. And then remember this loan we're getting over here. This is technically loan number 3 in our overall loans, but it's the loan that's secured against this property. So we don't want to cross-securitise our debts in regards to that. So it's that 400 plus the 125 that we're borrowing here, this one down here, that is the deductible debt. So that's the overall debt that we take against that property, and we'll be able to deduct that. So in terms of when I'm looking at all this stuff, there are some obviously mechanics around that. We say go and speak to a licensed mortgage broker in terms of investment savvy mortgage brokers, we always said. And if you are thinking about investing in property, we also say go and see a qualified property investment advisor. They will give you the numbers. They will show you how all this works. Don't take advice on investing in property from a mortgage broker. Take your advice for investing in property from a qualified property investment advisor, a specialist, and they will take you through this, because in your cash flow scenario, you may not have enough cash flow to support a $500,000 purchase, especially if you've got the kids coming up to a higher school level or whatever that may look like. So it might mean that you have to get a $400,000 property or a $350,000, or it might mean that the strategy for what we're buying may not be a growth asset, it might be a yield asset. So there are different permutations and combinations that need to be tailored for you. Don't ever get someone to come into your living room who is a so-called property advisor, they're property spruikers, and tell you you need to buy this asset. Just doesn't work.
The test for that too, Ben, is if someone does that, you straight away say to them, so what is the best solution for me?
Yep.
And the words that come out of their mouth next is critical.
Yeah.
Because if they've actually got a solution for you, that is a red flag.
Yep, one red flag there.
Versus them asking more qualifying questions.
2 red flag is usually how you get paid.
Yes.
So if you're getting paid from the developer, well, isn't that conflict in a way? Like, that's conflicted remuneration. You're trying to sell me a product, so you're acting as a real estate agent, not necessarily acting as a trusted advisor. So they are the two red flags for me, exactly what Bryce was saying, and then how are you paid? And then ultimately, if they're not diagnosing, taking a really deep dive into current and future cash flows, then that also rings bells to me that they may not be at the highest level of advisor, so you may want to get a second opinion on their advice.
Well said, Ben. So folks, that question that we started this live with was, how do they afford it? Hopefully that helps out. They actually are not finding more cash out of their budget. They're using equity to use as a deposit so that they can actually get themselves into the market. So there you have it, folks. If that was something that was on your mind and you're wondering how that worked, hopefully that's provided you with some clues. Now,
equity, mate. Equity, mate.
I like it. Hey, folks, Ben and I are doing something different next week. And we are going to do this style for 2 hours, 3 days in a row. So we are going to live teach. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through our best-selling book, The Armchair Guide to Property Investing, and we're going to pick apart the frameworks that are in here so that you can see that unpacked live. And the reason we're doing that is really, really simple. We have a community of people who reached out to us, Ben, and they've said, hey, look, I need another level of understanding, information, teaching that is in between where I am now and actually acting on the advice. So we are providing an online opportunity, an online course for people that we'll be selling. People will be paying for that at some stage.
Yep.
But what we're going to do is we're going to give you the opportunity to join us live for free. And you can see it. There'll be no replay. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to invite you along. You're going to see all of the teaching. There's a framework. The first day is about the foundations.
Yep.
The second day is all about the framework spend. And then the third day is about bringing it all together. And we're going to do some really cool stuff. So if you want to be a part of that, there'll be a link below. And you can register for that. We will send you all the details. But we would love to have you along. And Ben, if anyone asks a question, we're going to answer it live and they'll get a book just for asking the question.
Brilliant. And what I like about this, Bryce, is we do a lot of audio teaching on the podcast. Now we're actually going to have a whiteboard in front of us so we can actually do some visual teaching as well. So I think it's a great combination to cement the learnings that you've had from the podcast, and we're going to take a deeper dive into that as well.
Folks, absolutely free. We will sell it at some point in the future, but next week it's totally free for you to turn up. So if you want to turn up, or you have a friend or an associate or a colleague, please forward this and send it to them. Invite as many people as you like, because it's going to be live, it's going to be interactive, we're going to have some behind the scenes, we're going to answer your questions live, and at some point in the future other people will be able to access that, but it won't be able to be accessed free like it will be next week, Ben. So we suggest that you pop along, and this is the style, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah. If someone just turned up and had a look at the board, they're
rewind a bit.
Or maybe need to start from the start, because there's a lot of moving parts. But property investing sounds easy, but in practice, there is a process. It's not an event, and we're going to step you through each stages of that. So I'm excited by the top level view we're going to have at the start, but as we work through those 3 days, we're going to get right into the weeds in terms of how it all works.
We're going to go through finance, property, and money management and bring it all together so that this book actually makes sense. And we're going to teach that live. So folks, we'd love for you to join us. There'll be a link below. Make sure you check that out. There will also be a link on the screen here somewhere. And of course, we're about an hour away, Ben, from this week's Property Couch.
We are.
The podcast. So we would love for you to tune in today. We've got an amazing guest who has overcome a very, very rough start when it comes to building, but now has a very successful multi-million-dollar property portfolio. So check that out today at 3 o'clock on thepropertycouch.com.au.